Personal weapons and armour in medieval times. Shields during the Middle Ages were mainly made from animal hide, wood, or metal. These shields were not only used as a defensive measure, as they could be used as a bludgeoning tool to hit the enemy. When used to defend, knights would hold these shields up to block, weaken, or hit an enemy's sword away. They came in many shapes and sizes, allowing for different defensive uses. Smaller shields could be used as a precise blocking in conjunction with a sword or dagger, and was easier handled. Yet, a large shield, or full-body shield, was able to be used less actively but more defensively. These shields were also much more effective at blocking arrow attacks, as it would have been much more difficult to block an arrow with a small shield. Of course, shields made of metals and dense woods could withstand more of a beating and offer a better offensive tool, but these were also very heavy, and mobility was lacking. This is why hide or skin shields were used, as these could be swung around or handled quicker and with more ease. So, if not used defensively, shields could be used to simply smash an enemy with blunt force. If sword combat was not an effective method, or the enemy was not desired to be killed, a sudden shield hit could disable or knock out someone. Shields had an extremely wide range of uses, which is why shields were an integral part of medieval combat. Next is the armour, once again in many different forms. Chainmail was invented in Europe around 500 BC, with many further upgrades coming as time progressed. At the beginning of the medieval times, or early Middle Ages, chainmail material was used as no high-velocity weapons had been produced. Chainmail protected the wearer from slashing blows and from piercing strikes, proving effective against most enemies. Yet, as the medieval times progressed, it became increasingly clear that a harder, sturdier armour was needed. Breastplate, which covered much of the chest, with solid iron, steel, or brass plates used to prevent against stronger blows from swords, while allowing mostly full body flexibility with mail covering the rest of the wearer. This was effective if used on horseback, as it was comfortable and protective for both parties. Yet still, against high-velocity weapons, this was not good enough and degraded quickly. So by the 1400s, full plate armour had been invented and put into service. This armour was perfected to be able to be used on horseback to provide heavy support. Next, helmets were also a main part of knight's armour, as the head and neck are some of the most important things in the body. Nasal and Smengenhelm helmets were some early helmets made of iron, brass, and sometimes decorative parts. Yet the lack of protection of the neck, face, and throat meant that new technologies had to be created. Then the famous Great Helm was brought in around 1200 AD. Some variations of this led to the Templar's helm, commonly associated with the Crusades. Though towards the end of the Middle Ages, when people started to remember the ancient times, variants on ancient Greek helmets were made, called the barbute, which had a distinctive T or Y-shaped opening in the front. These proved effective. Lastly, a brief overview of the weapons used in medieval times. From the battle axe to the bow and arrow, weapons were designed to kill. Starting off with a simple spear, a long-handed, often wooden weapon with a sharpened stone or piece of metal at the end. Later, the pike was brought in as a more advanced spear. Pikemen were specially trained with this weapon and were often equipped with other, smaller weapons in case the enemy got too close. Weapons such as a dagger. This had many varieties, such as the misericord dagger, which resembles a stiletto with a long, thin blade. Daggers could vastly vary in size, leading some to be called short swords, as they were much larger than a simple knife. Along with melee weapons, ranged bow and arrows were also used. For example, the crossbow was a special bow, as it has a horizontal cocking mechanism as a lock, so arrows could be loaded and fired at a later time. And finally, the longbow, a deadly weapon which was capable of piercing fully armoured knights from around 250 meters away, and with a trained archer could fire to around 400 meters. The immense drawstring weight meant that archers had to be powerful enough to pull it back. These are just some weapons used in medieval times, and hopefully this gave you a brief example of just how deadly these times were. Thank you.